Let's speak to the expert. Dr. Nurse is in the build. Well, not in the building, but he's on the phone. Good morning, Dr. Nurse.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We are right.
Quite
How
well,
are you
quite
doing
well.
this morning?
I'm great, actually. Doing well. Nothing to complain about. Maybe a little bit of Saharan dust,
Right?
like everyone else.
Yep.
But other than that, I'm fine.
All right. So, as we well, the business community has reopened, at least here in Trinidad and Tobago, and so far we've seen the closure of several business places. Not to mention, well, downsizing and all that stuff. Can you maybe explain to us, I guess, as layman terms as possible, what's really happening with business places as we continue to open back up?
Okay, well, I think to put the things in context, what we need to understand, first of all, is that what we've been experiencing is a phased reopening of the economy. So the economy never really closed down because you still were able to go to the grocery, go get gas, etc., etc., etc. So essential services have been open. What we're doing and what the government has been doing is what we call a risk-based approach to reopening. So the things that are not super essential, like going to a bar, is not considered essential. Those things have been some of the last things to be opened. Yeah. And so the businesses that are retail businesses and businesses with a lot of face-to-face interaction, both by clients and with staff, are some of the last things that we're opening. And this is the same everywhere in the world. So Trinidad has done well to neutralize the immediate threat of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. But, the underlying dangers are still there, particularly where you see our neighbors in the south, Brazil and several other South American countries, the COVID-19 is spreading rapidly. I mean, in the United States, they had 50,000 new cases yesterday. So the virus is rampant in North America and in South America. So the Caribbean is this little area that has dodged the bullet thus far, with one or two exceptions. Dominican Republic, Haiti have had a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is what we call a demand shock. So basically, in effect, consumers have had to pull back on their spending because things are not open. And so the businesses that are heavily reliant on these non-essential type business operations are the ones that are being affected the most because they're being reopened late, and by then people have adjusted downwardly their spending patterns, or the aggregate demand in itself has reduced, meaning that there are more people out of work or on reduced incomes, and everybody's doing a penny pinching. So we are not out of the woods for a long time. The health experts tell us another 2 to 3 years potentially. I mean, this is going to be a huge shock to the global economy. Even the IMF have revised their initial downward growth of the global economy, and so it's now close to almost 6%, 5 to 6% of the global GDP decline expected.
Wow.
It's a long road to recovery, but what is the starting point? How does one begin to revive the economy after a pandemic?
Well, it's not. We are not in the after pandemic. It's during a pandemic.
Right.
So we have to be thinking, what can we do to generate some growth? So, for example, domestic tourism is something that we can now facilitate to a greater degree. So you are encouraging people to go to Tobago or to go visit sites in the country. That starts to generate some local activities and creates what we call income in the hospitality sector. That tends to have a widespread effect throughout the economy. So that's one of the things that I would recommend. We need people to get out of their homes, wear their masks, follow all the health protocols, do the social distancing, but these activities can still take place. We also want to encourage some of the firms in the hospitality sector to adjust their operations so that they make it very safe for people to come visit or come to a restaurant or to a bar. So you want to keep things working. What the government has been saying is that anything that looks very risky, we're going to pull it back. So if you have a bar opening and they're exceeding the 25 people at a time protocol, they're going to pull it back and scale it back, and for good reason. Because what we want to do is maintain a COVID-free environment as best as possible. Because once the virus becomes inserted into the society, it's very easy for a super spreader event to take place. And once that starts taking place, then everything will shut down. So this is actually, the government has done exceptionally well in terms of managing the COVID scenario. What we need now is an approach that helps to further diversify the economy.
Right.
So in areas like manufacturing, what you want to start seeing is how can we create new local products to replace imported products. And so you do a bit of what we call import replacement.
Right.
So what that does is that it saves on our foreign exchange, which is now increasingly challenged by the global demand shock for oil and gas. But, making sure that this domestic demand and even regional demand. So the next phase, I think, of activity would be for us to promote regional growth through regional tourism and regional intra-regional travel and movement, so that, we have a safe corridor of sorts within the region. We need to maximize on that.
Dr. Nurse, one of the things that you mentioned, well, you keep mentioning the local tourism and the regional tourism. And one of the things that I think draws people to come to the different islands would be the cultural aspect of the islands, what makes the islands unique. And during this reopening, we have been able to really tap into our creative and cultural industries to really open them back up. I mean, obviously not the way that they were before, but how do you see that playing a role as we go forward? Because, I mean, how do we have these events that would showcase our culture but still keep the social distancing? How do we tap into that market that has been stunted for the most part since Carnival has been done?
Okay, well, what is happening globally? Some of the more innovative, for example, festivals and events are doing hybrid events. So the event is both streamed live. So there's a ticket price for those who will view the event live, and so they're strengthening their e-commerce capabilities and their streaming capabilities to tap into that market. And then there are very select events or activities that people can come to physically. So it's not the same like what we had before in terms of the quantum of people that you can accommodate in a space. But what you are doing, in effect, is diversifying the income stream.
Right.
So that you are doing a bit of this and a bit of that. So the live event business has, like bars and restaurants, have been severely affected. I mean, but also in the health field, dentists have been severely affected. So you're seeing a number of industries and service sectors in particular that require human mobility or human contact being the ones that are severely affected. So the hybridization model that is being adopted for live events is a useful one, because now, Beanie Man and you have many of the top reggae artists, Buju Banton, having online concerts.
Right.
And what that is doing is then fueling the demand for their streaming products and streaming services. So this is where, for the creative sector, they need to be thinking increasingly about where they can create demand in let's call it an online environment.
Right.
So,
but Dr. Nurse, if it is that the creative sector goes online, why would I want to come to the country to see it? Because I can just go online. It kind of reduces the need for tourism, right? So it'd be two different things then, yeah?
Yeah, well, it depends how you define tourism. You could call it virtual tourism, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But the way in which you create a new tourism product in a COVID environment is to ensure that you have all these social protocols. So, for example, like this is described how we could generate intra-regional travel. Mind you, LIAT is facing some severe financial difficulties. We do hope our regional airlines can get back up on stream. I see Caribbean Airlines is starting to make flights out of Jamaica into North America, and then from Jamaica further down into the other parts of the region. So we need our regional transport airlines to be up and running in the first instance, as well as potentially some shipping, maritime industries to make some of this happen. So yes, you can create smaller curated events. So Trinidad Carnival is going to be an interesting test case come early next year for how we manage a hybridized event.
Yeah.
Which based on what I'm hearing, the focus is going to be on attracting both local and regional clients.
Right. Definitely. Dr. Nisa, I want to chat about entrepreneurship a little. And in times where there is recessive conditions, there's a recession happening in, the world globally. A lot of people would have lost their jobs that they would have been depending on for their income to feed themselves and their families and cover their needs. What role can entrepreneurship play in time of a recession?
Well, the definition of an entrepreneur is the person who is able to spot opportunity where others can't. And so some businesses are going to be impacted negatively and for a long time. So those people who are in those businesses need to be very entrepreneurial now and think, how can I switch from what I'm currently doing into something else? Do I have some capabilities? Do I have some resources? Is my location useful for something else other than what I've been using it for? Just yesterday I was reading an article about a pub in London, which has been around since 1827, and they're very concerned that they may lose their operation because they survived 4 cholera pandemics, Spanish flu, the 2 world wars, and now their biggest concern is coronavirus.
Right.
So that's to give you some kind of historical perspective. So even bars and pubs all around the world are having to think, well, can I now do mostly food and less drink? Can I have maybe some live event performance in that space so that I attract some clientele? Can I stream the event from my pub so that I generate some increased loyalty for my clients? This particular pub in London, they are delivering their craft beer to some of their dedicated clients. So the dedicated clients receive beer at their door. So they don't come to the pub anymore, but the pub is now providing a door-to-door service for their particular product and so forth. So that's what is being required of many of these businesses. They have to think of new ways of operating and new ways of tapping into the market, or even creating new demand for things that people didn't even recognize they needed before.
Right.
So, yeah.
What about those depressed businesses that had lost so much income? They're probably on the verge of closing their doors. What type of action would it take to bounce back or even make a shift into something that could save their business?
Government support is absolutely critical in this period. You're seeing that all around the world, but there's a limit to that. Government in debt globally is growing at a rapid rate, and so it really depends on the fiscal space that the particular government has. Trinidad and Tobago fiscal space has reduced because of the global shock in the demand for oil and gas. And so we still have a lot more wiggle room than most of our neighbors.
Right.
Trinidad and Tobago has almost 8 months of import coverage in terms of foreign exchange reserves. So what we want to do is get the government to use those resources very slowly, meaning encouraging more people to demand local goods and services and shift some of those resources towards the domestic economy to keep some businesses afloat. And the priority would be to keep those businesses that are involved in manufacturing and those businesses that are engaged in exports and those businesses that do what we call import replacement. Those are the priority areas for generating economic activity. Then those that are so-called non-essential services, they need to be thinking, well, what else can I offer? Definitely. What else can I do? And it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but one thing is to see what else is being done globally. So doing your research, doing your homework, because most economies are faced with the same challenges. So how do you flip around a business like us? If you're a florist,
that's right.
What else do you do?
And Dr. Nurse, we want to thank you for joining us this morning. We could chat with you for the rest of the morning, but we just want to thank you for joining us this morning and, of course, giving us this wonderful information that is always so helpful. And, somebody would have learned something this morning. We now kick it upstairs to the TTT News Center for the news at 7. We'll be back with the second half of the show after that.